WWE Wrestlepalooza is in the books. What did I think about this event? Well, that's what I want to talk to y'all about. So let's not even waste any time here. Let's get right into it. We're going to review this thing match by match, and then I'm going to give an overall rating of the overall show. So without further ado, let's get right into it with the first match. John Cena versus Brock Lesnar. At least this one had a little bit of a story build to it. The back and forth promos I thought they were pretty good. Lesnar kind of talking about how he didn't respect Cena's legacy, all that stuff. I kind of like that. They were going back to when they first started feuding, back then when Cena was doing the Thugonomics gimmick, all that. They acknowledged the fact that Cena's only pinned him one time. So it was a pretty good story build. So we got Lesnar coming out, making his entrance first. Nothing special. You know how Brock Lesnar gets down. I don't even think he jumped up on the apron for his entrance. I believe he just, he kind of stepped up and stepped through the ropes. He normally, jumps on the apron. Sometimes we get a pyro with that. We didn't get that this time here. Out next is John Cena, who has a pretty cool entrance where all the kids are dressed up as him. I believe he's done something like this a couple of times before. But, it's his farewell tour. Let them get the kids involved. Let them have their little fun. Now I got to talk about the match itself. Oh, before I get to the match, I do have to mention that Paul Heyman actually grabbed a microphone and announced Brock Lesnar, which I kind of thought was a nice little surprise. So now we get to the actual match. Now, I know this match was very hard-hitting. Pretty much every shot that Brock Lesnar gave was very stiff. I think there were a total of maybe four stiff shoulder blocks from Brock Lesnar to John Cena. We eventually get to a point where Cena kind of turns the tables. Actually, no, there were quite a few stiff clotheslines from Brock Lesnar as well, which Cena did an excellent job of selling. He did a good job selling each move. The pacing of that was really good. Eventually, we get to a little bit of a comeback by John Cena where he hits 3 AAs. And honestly, I thought maybe this will take Lesnar out. But then I remembered Cena gave Sami Zayn 3 AAs when I was in Chicago and Sami Zayn kicked out. So the AA it no longer means a damn thing in my opinion. It never finishes the match, even after 3 of them. Eventually, this gets to Brock Lesnar hitting 2 F5s, which Cena kicks out of. We get some back and forth punching and stuff like that. I believe Cena tries another AA. He messes it up. Brock Lesnar eventually hits 2 more F5s. I can't remember if he went for a cover after this or not. I think he might have played with Cena a little bit. And I believe from here on, Brock Lesnar basically just took advantage of the whole match. There's not many spots I remember from John Cena. I know we get 2 more F5s from Brock Lesnar. Even after a little bit of stalling, he covers Cena. 1, 2, 3. And yep, that's it. This match didn't do any damn favors for John Cena. Yeah, he did a good job selling the moves, but taking a loss like that, it didn't do him any favors. This was almost like when he got his ass whooped at SummerSlam 2014. The only difference from that match was I think Cena took about 18 or 19 suplexes. So, I mean, it wasn't that bad. This reminded me more of a match that Brock Lesnar and Goldberg would have. That was the effect it had to it. This match didn't do John Cena any favors. It really wasn't that great. You know what? I'm just going to give this damn match, I'm going to be nice and give it 2.5 out of 5. I was just going to give it 2, but since it was hard hitting, it was right to the point, I'm going to give it that. But in the end, I don't think the story made any sense. Brock Lesnar did not need this win. So with that being said, let's move on to the next match. The Usos taking on Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker. We get the Usos entering to the Day One-ish theme for about half of it. We get to a point where Jimmy Uso tells the fans to take out their cell phones and cut on the flashlight. I'm thinking he's going to do like a Bray Wyatt tribute or something like that. But he instead just says, Indianapolis, let's show ESPN how we do it. And this cues up the It's Just Me Usos theme, which in my opinion didn't make any damn sense because you're the Usos again. Why are you playing only Jey Uso's theme? I don't understand that. As much as I love Jey Uso's theme, that didn't make a lick of sense in my opinion. So then we get the entrance of Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker. You know, they had some nice little entrance gear, but nothing really about that entrance was, you know, nothing spectacular. Of course, LA Knight is the referee in this match. We do get a funny little chair spot with Jimmy Uso and LA Knight. I believe Bronson Reed brings the chair into play. LA Knight tells him, "You're not using that damn thing." I think this eventually sets up for Jimmy Uso to take the chair. Jimmy Uso attempts to hit Bronson Reed with the chair, and LA Knight just kind of gives the "go ahead, do it" look, and Jimmy strikes Bronson Reed with the chair. Thought that was a funny little spot. Moments later, Bronson Reed actually returns that chair spot. I mean, you know, Jimmy got away with it, so it's not like LA Knight's going to disqualify Bronson Reed. I guess it makes sense. Now, from Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker, we eventually get a Steiner Bulldog spot, which I thought was cool. I feel like Bronson Reed's moves and Braun Breaker, I feel like their moves are always pretty fresh. They look really safe, but they look really effective. Braun Breaker, I think, is definitely on his way to being a star. I just don't think he should be the guy to take that championship off Seth Rollins. I still believe that should be CM Punk. I know that feud's been going on for a long time, but it's going to make the most sense for CM Punk to be that guy. I do like Braun Breaker. I just don't think it's time to pull the trigger on him. Because, you know, if you think about it, during their entrance, there really was no pop for Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed. So I don't see any reason to really push this guy to the moon yet. I know we got a lot of corner to corner spots from Bronson Reed and from the Usos. It was a lot of back and forth. Usos do their usual, you know, probably 6 or 7 super kicks in this match. There were a couple spots where they simultaneously did their super kicks. We got a pretty nice Frankensteiner from Braun Breaker, which, you know, the way he does that reminds me of how Scott Steiner did it. I mean, this guy really took notes. He really did his homework when he took moves from his family, you know, because he does them to perfection. I know there was a spot outside of the ring where Braun Breaker, you know, ran full speed, but I think instead of doing his spear, I think he just did a clothesline outside the ring, and then, you know, we get the crowd doing the bark, all that. We do get a missed moonsault spot from Bronson Reed. And this spot turns into a swanton bomb from, I believe, from Jimmy Uso, which then Jimmy Uso eats a spear from Braun Breaker. Then Braun Breaker eats a spear from Jey Uso. Then we get a Uso splash from Jey Uso. We get a 1-2. Braun Breaker kicks out. Now, I do think it was smart to have Braun Breaker kick out of that because you still got to build this guy up. You got to make that Vision faction look strong, even though I'm not a fan of this group. I don't think that stable makes any sense. You know, I thought it would have made more sense to put like Paul Heyman with just maybe Braun Breaker or even Bronson Reed. I feel like this whole like partnership between Seth Rollins and Paul Heyman, I don't think it makes a lick of sense. I really don't. It's almost like he's already... He'll do just fine with Becky in his corner, in my opinion. But, you know, it is what it is. Let's talk about the match, not this stable. So, like I said, the Uso splash does not finish off Braun Breaker. So, we eventually get to a spot where Jey Uso and LA Knight are going back and forth. Now, I don't know what spot cuts Jey Uso open, but Jey Uso eventually gets to a spot where he's bleeding. And this kind of builds up to our finish. Jey Uso almost strikes LA Knight with the chair, but LA Knight kind of covers up. I believe after this, I want to say Jey maybe eats a spear from Braun Breaker or something like that. And then he sets him up. I believe he sets him up for maybe one more, and Jimmy kind of gets in the way. They both end up eating a spear through a table that was set up, which takes out both guys. That allows Braun Breaker to drag over Jey Uso's fallen body, hold him down, while Bronson Reed hits a massive tsunami. We get a 1, we get a 2, we get a 3. This ends the match. Winners of this match is Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker. I thought this was a pretty solid match. These were probably the most memorable spots that I mentioned here in the review of this match. So overall, I think I'm going to give this match a 3 out of 5. I think the right team won here. The Usos really didn't need this win, and plus you still got all that drama going on with Jey Uso and LA Knight. So the right team definitely won this match, and I think it was the right way to end that story, or at least to end that match. I think this LA Knight Jey Uso thing is going to continue, and in my opinion, it should probably end with LA Knight turning heel because Jey Uso is still too over. So now that I've given my review of that match, let's move on to the next one. Stephanie Vaquer versus Io Sky for the Women's World Championship. Both women make their way for their entrances. Bell rings. We get a handshake to start this match. Now, for the spots that I remember in this match, I know we got a nice double underhook face buster from Io Sky. This was executed to perfection. We got a suicide dive onto the outside from Io Sky onto Stephanie Vaquer. Eventually, she throws her into the ring. I think we get another attempt at might have been like a drop kick or something that Stephanie Vaquer kind of brushes off. Eventually, Stephanie Vaquer hits a springboard crossbody to the outside of the ring. Stephanie Vaquer throws her back in the ring, hits another one on the inside of the ring. Couple more, solid spots, some suplexes, some suplex reversals, some pretty good selling of normal strikes, stuff like that. Good pacing. A memorable spot from Stephanie Vaquer is the corner dragon screw, which looked like it was very painful. I noticed, I don't know if Io Sky was just selling real well or what, but it looked like it legit hurt. Io Sky pretty much sold the leg for the remainder of the match after this bump. There was an attempt of a devil's kiss move that Io stopped early on in the match too that I forgot to mention. A couple moments later, Stephanie Vaquer does end up hitting the devil's kiss, which really gets the crowd going. She picks her up and she hits the SVB. But here's my thing with that. Now, I thought that this finishing move was changed last week on Raw to like a better version of it, but tonight it went back to the original version where it's like a double underhook backbreaker. So I don't know if that move is going back to its roots or just what's going on here. Nonetheless, that doesn't finish the match. It only gets a 2 count. Io kicks out at 2.5. Eventually, Io starts making a comeback. The match is still going back and forth with Io taking a slight advantage. Gets Stephanie Vaquer into the corner. A smart spot that Io Sky does here is she actually pulls down the knee pads and exposes the knees and hits, what does she call that corner knee drop in the corner? I think she calls it the bullet train attack. First she hits a regular one, and then for the second one, she pulls the knee pads down and hits that. She tries a pin attempt. I believe she only gets a 2 count. Stephanie Vaquer gets up. Io slips up on one spot. I don't remember what it was, but this is a corner spot. I think Io maybe gets shoved off the corner or something like that. Stephanie Vaquer hits a corkscrew moonsault kind of move and goes for the pin. Guess what? This ends the match. 1, 2, 3. Now, I do think this has been the best match so far in the event. However, do I agree with them putting the title on Stephanie Vaquer? Yes and no. I agree with it. I just don't think it was the time for it. I think it was way too soon. This kind of reminds me of when like Ronda Rousey got the title put on her. But I mean, I get it. Io Sky already had her time with the title, so I get it. But I would have maybe made this a triple threat match and put Asuka into the match and had Asuka take the win here. That gives, Stephanie Vaquer time to get built up as a champion, maybe take a Royal Rumble win and choose a champion at WrestleMania. I just think it was way too soon to do this. But it is what it is. It was a good match. We closed this match out with a show of respect. Io kind of gives her a handshake, gives her a hug, bows to her. We leave this scene with Stephanie Vaquer raising the title, and then we get some pyro. Pretty good match. I just don't know if I agree with them putting the championship on Stephanie Vaquer yet. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get to our next match. And now it's time for our mixed tag team match. This is where AJ Lee makes her return to in-ring action for the first time in a long time. We get a very cool entrance from Seth and Becky. They come out with matching gear. You got the pyro there. Not going to lie. These two get on my nerves, but that entrance was great. CM Punk comes out wearing a AJ's husband jacket. I mean, it is what it is. It was a cool jacket. Nice little tribute to his wife. AJ Lee comes out wearing her gear that she, wore when she was a WWE diva. The only difference is we see her logo on her back pocket on the right side. So they tease AJ Lee starting off the match, but I already predicted that wouldn't happen. You got to build this thing up. So they go back and forth with that. We get back and forth tags where it looks like, Becky's going to start the match, then she will tag in Seth. And then they kind of did a little spot where they actually tricked her into really thinking we were going to get AJ in there, and then went right back to Seth being in the ring. So Seth and Punk start this match out. We get some pretty solid action from Seth Rollins and from CM Punk, their usual stuff. They go back and forth. CM Punk gets his stuff in. Seth gets cheap shot in, to reverse it all, gets his heel heat going. We get a lot of spots where, like when CM Punk is on the ropes, Becky will give him a cheap shot. Now, eventually, when the tables turn, AJ Lee returns the favor to Seth Rollins, which was a pretty good spot. For the good half of this match, we get CM Punk versus Seth Rollins pretty much. So when AJ Lee finally gets tagged in, of course the ref doesn't see it. I think this is where Becky Lynch kind of, I don't know if she really steps in the way or what happens, or if the ref's view was just kind of blocked out, but the ref doesn't see it. So AJ's tag is not legal. This is where we get Seth working on CM Punk more. There was a spot in here where Seth Rollins even picked up his own wife, did a gorilla press, and tried to throw her onto CM Punk. But guess what? CM Punk rolled out of the way. So technically, Becky Lynch took a bump from her own husband. I mean, she does have a kid with him, so that's not the first bump she took. Still, I mean, this is still pretty much CM Punk taking most of the bumps here because, we got to build up for this AJ run-in or hot tag, whatever you want to call it. We get to a very funny spot eventually, but I guess I should probably mention that Seth gets his usual Falcon Arrow spot in. Falcon Arrow. You know why I hate that move? Because when I was a pro wrestler, I never ever kicked out of that move. I don't know why I needed to tell you that. I just did. So let's see what else we got here. All this is just, it's just building up to a AJ tag in. The real tag, I have to say though, the real tag to AJ Lee, that was good stuff. Although before we got to that, there was a nice little spot where Seth Rollins was doing the AJ Lee, like little jog thing that she does to the ring. And then as soon as he finishes doing that, he eats a go to sleep. I thought that was a funny spot. This is where we eventually get to our AJ Lee tag in. So Becky comes in, tries to, do some hits on CM Punk. CM Punk blocks all of them. He eventually grins at her, and we get the tag from AJ. AJ comes in real hot with the tag, does her usual Luthez takedown. Some nice selling from Becky Lynch. Seth Rollins even eats a few slaps from AJ. We got a really nice spin kick spot from AJ Lee. For the most part, AJ Lee's early offense all looked good. We also got a really nice sliced bread spot where CM Punk actually lets AJ use him kind of as a propeller to get the move done. There's also a spot where Seth tries to run in, and AJ Lee actually uses Seth Rollins as a propeller to a bulldog spot. So we did get some nice moves here. Some good chemistry from all four people here. The Black Widow spot, the first one that was attempted, that to me looked a little bit botched. The second one was effective. We did not get a tap out there because I believe the ref might have got distracted or something like that from Seth Rollins. However, for the second Black Widow spot, this is also where CM Punk locks in a sharpshooter at the same time. Eventually, Seth Rollins even takes a Black Widow. Eventually, the heels take over. We get a Beck Exploder from Becky Lynch. Another cool spot is we get a double pedigree. At the same time, Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch hit a pedigree on AJ Lee and CM Punk. We get Becky Lynch actually putting the sharpshooter on CM Punk as Seth is kind of taunting him around. I believe there's an attempt after it might have been a curb stomp where Seth Rollins attempts to pin CM Punk, and AJ Lee actually hits Seth Rollins with the curb stomp. So we got a lot of finisher exchanges here, which was nice. We get a manhandle slam attempt from Becky Lynch. However, this is when AJ Lee counters it with the Black Widow, and finally we get our tap out. There was also an outside table bump in this match before we got to the finish that was kind of off cue, but with the finish, they actually made it work. Now, one thing I got to say about this match is it was excellent. I'm not going to give it a 5 stars because we had maybe 2 or 3 sloppy moments, but the match was so good you don't really notice them overall. So I'm going to give this match a 4.5 out of 5. I think this was a perfect way for AJ to make her return. I think this is going to build up to a AJ Becky Lynch Intercontinental Championship match just fine. I do think Becky Lynch is going to win the first match. I think eventually AJ Lee is going to take that title. But I also think this did an excellent job of setting up a rematch between CM Punk and Seth Rollins. And please, for the love of God, let CM Punk take that title off Rollins this time. Rollins is just like, he doesn't need the championship to be a star. He doesn't. It's time for CM Punk to have that championship. But I think if they're going to go this route, they're probably going to have CM Punk and AJ both win those championships at the same time. So that's probably going to be long-term storytelling in the end, which I'm okay with if they do this the right way. Like I said, I'm going to give this match 4.5 out of 5 stars. I loved it. AJ Lee did an awesome job. CM Punk did an awesome job. Seth Rollins did an awesome job, and so did Becky Lynch. These 4 work great together, and I want to see more of this for sure. So with that being said, let's move on to our main event. Our main event of the night, Cody Rhodes versus Drew McIntyre. So early on in this match, we get Cody Rhodes selling a previous attack from Drew. It's like when he was stumbling for a disaster kick. I thought Cody was legit hurt during this match. That's just how good Cody Rhodes sells. I think it was maybe an attack. An attack that happened on SmackDown that Cody was selling. So in this match, Drew McIntyre hit several belly-to-belly suplexes like he usually does. A lot of back and forth momentum in this match too. We get a Alabama slam onto the steel steps. This was done by Drew McIntyre onto Cody Rhodes. Now the thing about that move that just scares the living hell out of me is I remember when Drew McIntyre gave this move to Madcap Moss and he damn near broke his neck. So I don't know why they're still letting that move happen. So whatever, maybe Drew's gotten safer with it. I don't know, but I wouldn't be taking that move. We get a power slam homage from Cody Rhodes to Drew. The same kind of power slam that Randy Orton does. I think Cody might have been doing this as maybe a tribute to Randy Orton. I don't know. Cody eventually hits his Cody Cutter. Nice little spot from Drew McIntyre we get. Drew McIntyre hits the white noise off the top rope. So he basically does a tribute to Sheamus. I don't know what the deal is with everybody doing other people's finishers now. I feel like I'm seeing enough of that with John Cena and whoever he goes against. We saw a lot of that in the John Cena versus Sami Zayn match on SmackDown where they were hitting each other's finishers and then the finishers are other people. But I don't know. I just feel like sometimes that makes like the person who actually made that finisher, it makes them look kind of weak. We got a Claymore countered into a powerbomb by Cody Rhodes when Drew went for his Claymore. We got a nice little spot where Drew McIntyre went into the exposed corner. Drew was the one that took the damn turnbuckle off in the first place, but he got exposed to it. We got a crossroads from that spot and a nice little kick out from Drew. Usually when you hit like an exposed turnbuckle and you take a finisher, that's all she wrote. But no, they gave Drew a nice little moment where he kicked out of that. Also, we had a great sell from Cody Rhodes after that spot, kind of selling it too. We also got a actual Claymore from Drew, which got a near fall. Actually, that was the good sell from Cody. It was after the Claymore. Like, Cody kind of flipped and spun into the air as he took the Claymore, which was a good sell. But again, he kicked out at 2. But he did make the move look good. So I'll give Cody his due on that. When we get to the finish, we got a battle going on outside the ring. Drew actually does hit a suicide dive, like a flip over the top rope, which actually looked really good. The landing on his arm looked a little bad, but, it turned out Drew was okay. But as we're on the outside, we get a spot where Drew is attempting to do the Claymore, and the ref kind of steps in the way. He kind of brushes the referee to the side, goes for the Claymore, and he misses. His foot goes right through the commentator's table. Now, I don't know if Drew was just selling this bump or what, but he was selling it even after the match, and the EMTs were looking at him and everything. So, I don't know. I really hope Drew's not actually hurt, as Drew McIntyre is one of my favorite wrestlers on the WWE roster right now. So, after that spot, they get back into the ring. Cody goes for another disaster kick. Drew McIntyre counters this disaster kick with a Glasgow kiss. This sets up Drew to go to the corner and hit the Claymore. As Drew is running for the Claymore, his knee buckles. He falls down, sells it. Cody gets up, hits a Cody cutter, I believe. Paces around a little bit, lifts up Drew McIntyre, hits a crossroads. 1, 2, 3. This match is over. This was also a pretty good match too. I give this match a 4 out of 5. I think the crowd was kind of drowned out a little bit just because of how, how good the previous match was and how long it was and the pacing and all that. I don't think they quite fell asleep. They were into this match, but I don't think this match was as good as the one before it. So with that being said, I will give it a 4 out of 5. Cody Rhodes retains the championship, and that's how we end this show. Now, what did I think of this show overall? I think this was a very good show. I personally wish I could have been in attendance for this show as I was at Royal Rumble in Indianapolis, but it is what it is. The streaming went real well. I don't remember dropping service at any time, so I was satisfied. This was a pretty solid show. I think overall I'm gonna give this show a 4 out of 5. I mean, it wasn't quite a WrestleMania. And I don't really remember any of the matches being bad except for Brock Lesnar versus John Cena. I could have done without that match, and I really didn't like the end result. But overall, I was satisfied with the show. Did you guys watch Wrestlepalooza? If you did, what did you think? Do you agree with my score of 4 out of 5, or did you think the show was better than I did, or did you think it was worse? Let me know in the comments. If you like this review, go ahead and hit that like button, and please subscribe. I will catch y'all in the next video. Peace.